Welcome back to Fretbuzz. Thanks for tuning in. Last week we did a little cover for you guys. I hope you guys enjoyed that. And this week we're doing something a little different. Being a musician is quite an interesting career. And right now, we're all on a little hiatus. But during the heyday, we were involved in all kinds of crazy scenarios that pop up. The entertainment business is just full of surprises. There's never a dull moment. So I just wanted to share a story, the craziest gig I never did. And basically, I was living in Miami at the time. I was studying at Florida International University. So shout out to all my FIU peeps and my teachers and everybody back home. But during that time, it was kind of like a learning period. So pretty much any gig that came your way, you looked at it as an opportunity to learn. So you take it and you figure, on the job training, that kind of thing. And so at the time I was studying jazz performance, guitar specifically, and getting my degree, blah, 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 teaching in the evenings and then gigging at night, and, crazy schedule, barely any sleep. And I get this call, and it's a young lady. She has a very, European accent, and she's telling me about how she studies with this vocal coach, a renowned vocal coach, that needs an accompanist for a concert, just a duo, right? So she's looking for a jazz guitarist, and of course, that was the title that I was pursuing at the time, jazz guitarist. So I said, yeah, let's do it. I take on the challenge. So I get the information, I get the address, I get kind of like the gist of what we're getting into, and hop in my car. It's the day of the rehearsal. Drive down to South Beach, which I thought it was interesting that the vocal coach lived in South Beach. And the girl tells me she's going to meet us down there, the girl that hired me. So as I'm parking, she did mention her vocal coach was older, and she'd been around forever. She'd sang with everybody, allegedly. So she says, she's a little older. So I'm parking my car, and I do see an older woman walking a tiny, tiny, tiny little dog. And remember that part. That's important. And but the thing that stands out is not the dog or her age or anything like that, is that she has bright red hair. And when I say red, I mean like she was in a punk band or something. So already I'm like, well, I hope that's not the lady. And of course it was the lady. But I get out of the car, and not only is her hair red, but it looks like it's like almost like a, how would you say it, like a crest on a bird? She looks like Woody Woodpecker, basically. Exactly. And I'm like, okay. Turns out it's the lady. She's like, oh, are you Ash? Blah, blah, blah. Very nice lady. Very nice little dog. Sure, whatever. All things aside, South Beach. That's pretty standard. So she walks me over to the spot, and she's like, oh, I'm right over here. So we walk over. I've got an amp. I got a guitar on my back, I got a music stand, and a real book. Standard issue. I'm walking behind a lady, and when I see the apartments where she lives, they're all one story, and it's all in a row, and they look exactly the same. It's kind of weird. And not only that, but like the door to her place is kind of small, and this lady's really tall. I'm not that tall, but I got a lot of stuff, I'm kind of toting with me. So, when I get to the door, I'm like, well, let me see, And as she opens the door, humongous dog. So if the first dog is this big, this one is like 80 of those dogs. I'm like, whoa. And she's like, oh, no, he's friendly. He doesn't bite, blah, 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 blah. Okay, sure. I'll take your word for it. Opens the door. Also, I notice there's a stove right where you open the door, which is a weird place for a stove. I don't know. I'm not an architect. But anyways, opens the door, try to get through. Dog is there. Try to get around this, dinosaur of a dog, and past the stove. And literally, it's like you get past the stove, and that's it. There's one room there. There's a bed and a couple chairs and a desk. And I'm like, whoa, okay, wasn't expecting that. The bed is literally littered with sheet music, like over 100 songs, standards. The kind you pick up like a one sheet kind of thing down at Guitar Center if you're learning how to play piano kind of thing. And I'm like, one, there's a fortune in sheet music here. She could have got a real book. And two, we're not doing that many songs. Actually, I think that was my first thought. We're not doing all these songs. But anyways, so she makes a little space for herself on the corner of the bed. I grab a chair, set up the amp. We're doing the little small talk, blah, blah, blah. Oh, yeah, I go to FIU. Yeah, I study jazz. Tell me about you, and, that kind of thing. The two dogs are kind of like being playful over here. I'm sitting here. She's on the bed. So we pick a tune. I don't remember what it was. Something really basic. I think it was like Ipanema or something like that. And we're like, all right, let's do it. F, right? So we try it in F. She can't sing it in F. All right. So we try. I think she said it was too low for her. I was like, oh, okay. So we go up. She couldn't do it. So we try, all right, well, just to be on the safe side, let's try going down. Nothing. All 12 keys, cannot sing Ipanema. So at this point, the red flags, the redder flags are going off, and I'm going, and when I say red, I mean, red. I'm going, okay, something's not adding up. She can't sing the song. It was a very basic thing. So we go, let's try a different song. So I think we pulled out Autumn Leaves. I mean, this is like bread and butter stuff. I mean, it should be like a piece of cake. We try to get through that one. Same issue. Can't figure out what her range, or key or nothing. I mean, there's only 12 of them, and none of them seem to be working. So, at this point, when we start picking out a third song, my phone goes off, and it's the girl that had hired me. I want to say her name was like Katya or Nadia or something like that. Something exotic. Well, she says she's there to let her in. So we let her in. The dogs go crazy. And this girl literally walks in. She's like a supermodel. Like what? Like she walked off of Sports Illustrated or something. And so now, just to recap, college student, jazz box, real book, Woody Woodpecker, humongous dog, tiny little dog, supermodel. Yep. Yeah, like I said, craziest gig I never did. So we kind of tell her, we're here trying to figure out keys and blah, blah, blah. We just kind of got started. And she goes into this whole other aspect of the gig of kind of like giving me the details. So I'm like, yeah, sure. I'd like to know more about what's cracking. And so the details are, the gig's on a boat. It's a night cruise. So we'll be going out and coming back the same night. And basically, there's going to be a lot of important people there, meaning, I don't know, politicians or I don't know who. But this is allegedly the lady's big comeback. She hasn't sang publicly in over 30 years, they tell me. That part I could believe. But anyways, here's the heart-wrenching part. So she starts telling me about how she's put every penny she has from her lessons and whatever else she does or whatever she gets into having this gown or this like crazy dress made for the night. That it's her big comeback, and that it's, there's a photographer coming and this and this and that, and everybody's going to be there and all this stuff. And while she's telling me this like kind of like heart-wrenching thing where I'm a little torn because I really don't want to do the gig at this point. This is when things get weird. So remember the tiny little dog? And remember the ginormous dog I told you about? Now remember, we're in a small little room. And again, Woody Woodpecker, college student, real book, supermodel, T-Rex, and we need a bigger box. Jurassic Park decides to reinvent the rules of nature and try to make a chi raptor, with the tiny little chihuahua. And I'm like, what is happening right now? Because this is happening in my peripheral, but I mean, you can't miss it. I mean, there's nowhere, we weren't socially distancing back then. Let's put it that way. Pretty close. So I'm like, what the heck? And they noticed, my expression. So they're like, oh, they're just playing, And then I'm like, just playing. I'm like, all right, you're just going to brush it off. And so I look at the supermodel lady, because she's more like my age, like in her 20s or whatever. And she's like, oh, I'm so sorry, blah, blah, blah. And I'm thinking like, well, somebody going to do something? Nobody does anything. This goes on for about maybe 10 minutes. When I was like, oh, I got to pull the plug. So I was like, oh, I got to be somewhere in Cincinnati. I didn't know the rehearsal was going to take that long and blah, blah, blah. I gathered my things and I told them, yeah, we're going to figure it out. We'll have another rehearsal and blah, blah, blah. I pull the trigger. I'm out. I'm walking to the car. I'm like, what just happened? Like what universe did I just get sucked into? I'm waiting for Ashton Kutcher or, the Twilight Zone, something, like what is happening? Put my stuff in the car, and I don't know what happened, but I know that I gotta tell somebody. That I know. So I get on my, what was it back then? My little Motorola, and I'm like, let me call somebody. And I'm like, I gotta get somebody to cover for me, because I can't do this thing. So I start thinking, who could I call? And the first guy that comes to mind is this dude called Jeff Caldwell. Rest in peace. Amazing OG jazz guitar player in Miami. He passed away. And anyways, Jeff he'd seen it all, man. He'd been around, he was that guy. He probably played at, Moses's like cocktail hour. You know what I'm saying? Like, this guy, he's seen it all. So to him, I'm thinking this will be, interesting. He might turn it down, but he might take it. He's the only guy I can think of. So I call him. I start telling him what just happened, just like I told you. And we're laughing, but he's like, don't worry about it. You called the right guy. I know just what to do. And I was like, all right, Jeff, this is all you. And according to him, because I talked to him after the game, I had to find out what finally happened. And he says that it went fine. But man, do I wish that there was like camera phones back then and Instagram. Because I would love to have seen for myself what actually went down. And more importantly, I would love to show you guys what went down. But I have a vivid version in my mind that I've created of what I think happened. But I just can't imagine Woody Woodpecker in a crazy gown with a doting assistant, which looks like a model, and or like a Bond girl basically, and old trusty Jeff like trying to figure out what key she's in for that measure anyways. Oh Jesus. So in a nutshell, that's the craziest gig I never did. And I love sharing this story because I know every one of my friends has one, as crazy or crazier or weirder, or, we've all been there, done that, and or not done that in my case. And it's just, the world is a crazy place full of interesting people. And you just got to appreciate the differences and, not take it too seriously, especially in these crazy times. And just take it with a grain of salt, man. Enjoy the ride because it's a wild one. Till next week, we'll have some more music and interviews and gear reviews and maybe some more fun stories and possibly a lesson in there too. So tune in next week. See you on the other side, guys. Ash out.